We are excited. We were praying this morning, and my goal this morning is for us to be encouraged by what God has been doing in and among us for the last year. So let me ask you a question to start out. How many in here are celebrators? Okay. How many of you are not really celebrators? See, they don't put their hands up because they don't celebrate, right? So even though there's a bunch of you, okay. Now, so here's my question. What's your favorite kind of celebration? What are some of the celebrations you like? What gets you excited? Christmas, that's a good one. What else? That's right. Birthdays, I heard family, right? Weddings, that's right. Great celebrations, weddings. How about when your child or your grandchild accomplishes something? Right? We celebrate. I mean, we celebrate everything now, whether they accomplish something or not, but we like to do that, okay? How about when your sports team wins? Now, if you're a Washington fan, that's never actually happened, but this is coming from a Dallas fan who hasn't won anything in 30 years, so. But I mean, sometimes we like to celebrate, right? You see people get very excited. Some of you, what about a really good dinner? And you're like, oh yeah, that was good. Now, some of you are really weird in your celebration, because once a month, you'll download this thing off the internet, and you'll pull out your finances, and you'll balance your checkbook. And it'll balance, and you'll be like, yes! And you get excited. You celebrate that your checkbook balance, right? We celebrate all kinds of stuff from big to little. Have you ever wondered why? See, God hardwired celebration into us. That's actually how we're created. He designed us that way. It's in the fabric of life together. That's just how He made it be. That's why people do this all over the planet. It doesn't matter your culture, your language, people celebrate. And there's different ways to celebrate, because some of those things we talked about, you just celebrate on your own, right? Something really happened, you liked it, and you celebrate. A lot of times we celebrate with family, extended family. We like to do things, especially when it comes to birthdays, anniversaries, that. Sometimes the celebrations are like this. We're with friends and family. And you know this because, the big anniversaries, the big birthdays, that's when we invite everybody. We do these big celebrations. Solomon, one of the wisest men who ever lived, he actually said that to take joy in life is actually a gift of God to us. Psalms talks about loving life. And if you think of the parables of Jesus, he tells different ones. You remember the story of the prodigal son and the lost coin, the lost sheep? What do the people do when they find them? They celebrate, right? I mean, they have a party. Jesus went to parties all the time. And when we get to eternity, an integral part of eternity is going to be food and music and celebration. It's going to be amazing. The reason God did that, because celebration works best when we do it in community, because it spurs and encourages each other. But celebration focuses our attention. So think about the last time you had a birthday party and you celebrate the birthday. Who's the center of attention? The person who's having the birthday, right? And that's where they get the cake. They get the candles. We had a tradition in our house where we had actually painted up these special plates, and they said, "You are special today." And whenever something like that happened and we were going to celebrate, we'd pull those out. And so we'd use them all the time to kind of focus the attention on that person. When we celebrate God, it puts the attention squarely on Him. That's why we celebrate. That's why we do this today, because we want the attention to be on Him. And it reminds me of a celebration when David was the new king of Israel. He had kind of united all the tribes. It had taken a lot of effort. There had been a lot of fighting, but now they're finally all together. Jerusalem is his capital. And he says, you know what, we need to bring the Ark of the Covenant, which was the symbol of God's presence with them. If you remember, they made it when they were traveling through the wilderness. And he said, well, we need to bring this to the capital city. We need to bring it to Jerusalem. And if you remember the whole story, and we're not going to talk all about it, the first time they tried, it didn't go so well. They tried to do it, they did it wrong. Someone ended up dying. And so David kind of puts a pause on it and says, right, we got to do this right. And so if you actually read the story in celebration, in 1 Chronicles 15, we read this. It says, after David had constructed buildings for himself in the city of David, in other words, in Jerusalem, he kind of set everything up. He prepared a place for the Ark of God. He pitched a tent for it. In other words, they didn't have a temple yet, so it was their church, their tabernacle. And David said, no one but the Levites may carry the ark of God, because the Lord chose them to carry the ark of the Lord and to minister before him forever. And the reason he said this was because the last time he tried to carry it, he put it on a cart, and it resulted in a guy, touching the ark, and he died. And David realized, yeah, that's not how this is supposed to go down. So let's do it this way. And so they decide they're going to have this great celebration. So people come from all over the place. There are thousands and thousands of people, and they bring the ark in. So he says they assembled all Israel, which basically means there were people that traveled great distances to be here for this party, to bring the ark of the Lord to the place that he had prepared for it. And it must have been amazing. Because you've ever been in a place where there's tens of thousands of people, like there's an energy to that that's just fantastic. Samuel has just a different perspective on it when he was talking about it. And he said, when those who were carrying the ark of the Lord had taken 6 steps, right, they just got started, he sacrificed a bull, a fattened calf, and wearing a linen ephod, just a robe, David was dancing before the Lord with all his might, while he and all Israel were bringing up the ark of the Lord with shouts and sounds of trumpets. Like, just picture this. Thousands of people along the road. The ark is being carried by the priests. David's at the front. There's music, there's trumpets, there's cymbals, there's all kinds of different instruments. He's dancing. The people are dancing. They're celebrating. They're yelling. I mean, this is a celebration, because the presence of God is coming in the city. As the ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, Michal, daughter of Saul, David's wife, watched from a window. And so she wasn't even a part of it. She was kind of way over here. And when she saw King David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she despised him in her heart. Why? Because in her mind, the dignity of the king was more important than celebrating God. And when she confronted her husband, his response is amazing, because he says to his wife, "It was before the Lord who chose me, rather than your father or anyone from this house, when he appointed me ruler over the Lord's people. In other words, I'm king because of God. That's the only reason I'm the king. I will celebrate before the Lord. I will become even more undignified than this, and I will be humiliated in my own eyes. But by these slave girls you spoke of that are making fun of me, I will be held in honor." To his wife, the dignity of the king was the most important. To David, the honor of his heavenly Father was the most important thing. Never put your dignity, by the way, ahead of your celebration. Anytime you don't do something because you think it might make you look foolish, we're in danger of sliding into Michael's side. But David was celebrating who God was. That's what we want to do this morning. And they were celebrating, and here's why this was so important, because when we celebrate what God has done for us, when they did it and when we do it as a church, it doesn't just give us warm fuzzies. It reminds us that God can be trusted with our future because he's been faithful in our past. We can trust him. It encourages us, when we celebrate, it encourages a commitment that says, you know what? The most important thing in my life is him. And so I'm going to sell out for that. And so that's what we're going to do this morning. It allows us to take risks and to keep moving. So we're going to hear a story in a second, but I want you to just take out your report, because we're going to look at a couple things in here. Our 2000, we call it the impact report, because it's the impact that God had in us and through us over the course of this last year, 2023. And so what we did is we divided the report up into 3 pieces, and I'm not going to go through it all in detail. This is something that you can do on your own. I would encourage you to read it. Everything's in bite size, like it's not really long, very, very graphical. But what we did was, the first part of the report is just about celebrating. So if you look in pages 1 to 9, it's just things that God has done. There's some messages from your leaders on kind of what they've seen God do. There's little snapshots of lots of things. This was amazing. Do you know, we were challenging people to pray over other people this year. That happened 671 times as a church. That's amazing. We had 8 baptisms. We had our attendance, the number of people that are worshiping together is increasing. We were able to support people financially, missionaries, our college kids going to college. We had salvations. It was just all kinds of good stuff. Take a look. God was so faithful in that. And then you can read some of the snapshots, some little things that people said about how God is working. We did this in our leadership team recently. He said, what would you celebrate? What can you thank God for that only God can do? Because only God can change people. He's the only one who can change hearts. He's the only one who can pave the way for us to move forward. And so I'm going to invite, but that's the first part, sorry, before I do that. And so some of the highlights this year that I would kind of point out were the salvations, the baptisms, the invitations. We actually served others for a benefit not of ourselves, 2,800 hours, which is awesome. That's a lot of energy spent in serving other people. The second part, and we're going to look at this in a little bit, is the vision side. So pages 11 to 17 is the vision for, like, where are we going? Okay, so God was faithful. We're celebrating that. What does that mean for our future? And Mike and I are going to talk about this in a little bit, with the vision for next year. But the highlights are going to be this idea of going one step beyond. In our service, in our prayer, in how we connect with those who don't know Jesus, how we move forward with the missional outpost, and we'll clarify all that in a moment. And then, of course, the last part of the impact report is the stewardship side, because this church has been incredibly generous in supporting what God is trying to do, and we want to be good stewards of that and let you know what that looks like. So obviously there's a lot of information there, but God has been so faithful through us. And there are some challenges for 2024 that we're going to talk about as well. So that's the structure of the report as you're looking through it, those kind of three things. And we want to start with the celebration. And so we're going to start out with, I'm going to ask Robin and Chris to come up. What mic do you want me to use, guys? Does it matter? Use yours? All right. I told them they would have stools to sit on, but I forgot, so now you have to stand. Whichever one of you wants to go first. Now, the reason I asked, Robin and Chris have been part of the church for a long time, but the reason I asked them was they're both involved in elements of how God uses our church that aren't always visible to everybody. So Chris has long been involved in the sports ministries of our church. There have been times in history where sports was viewed as a lesser thing, something that we just do on the side instead of the integral way of connecting with people that it is. And so you can see from here, there's a bunch of different things that happen here. There's pickleball in this building all the time, right? On Monday and on Wednesday and then Monday evening. And there's a basketball league that we do in partnership with Love Inc., where there's lots of young men from our community coming in and playing basketball and being exposed to the gospel. But you've been integrally involved in the volleyball league, which is every Tuesday and Thursday. This church is filled over here with people, as well as the softball league. So when I asked them to share, what I asked both Chris and Robin to share was, tell us a little bit about the ministry and the way that that's had an impact, how God has used that in that. So Chris, why don't you go first?
Thank you, Weldon.
And hold that nice and close, or they won't hear you.
So, is it on? Can you hear me?
We good?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Keep going. It's on.
Hello? Hello? The green light? There is a green light here.
It's on Clay's mic.
Hello?
So I said, don't mute anybody.
Testing.
There we go.
Okay, thank you, Weldon. Yes, I've been involved with the athletic ministries here at Atlanta Road Lions Church for a number of years, first as a player back in the late 80s, early 90s, and then became a softball coach. Been coaching the softball team for probably 30 years, long time. And so it's been a real blessing. And then I got involved with being the coordinator for both the Woodbridge Christian Athletic Association as well as the Softball League Association that we have. And so I've been working with both of those ministries outside of coaching here, both the softball team and the volleyball. And we're ministering, basically we have 12 churches right now in volleyball, 170 players who are playing actively with 3 different leagues. So it's just a blessing to be able to have a facility like God has blessed us with, to be able to utilize these resources so we can minister not just to our own church here, which we have 2 teams currently in volleyball, but also to our community. When it comes to softball, we have 8 to 10 churches involved, between 150 to 160 players, not counting fans and people who come up to see us play. So again, we're thankful again for the softball field that the Lord has blessed us with, that we can again show God's love not just to our church community, but then also to our community of other churches, as well as bringing people who don't know the Lord into to play softball and watch us play.
So how have you seen this actually impact someone? Because you can play sports and not be impacted. How has this made a difference in the lives of any people in your experience?
Well, again, not just with our own players who have played on our teams, but also other players who have played on other teams. It shows us in winning and losing how to win gracefully and how to lose gracefully. And that's not easy. For any of you who are involved in athletics, in competition, we talked about sports, and it's hard. Because again, if you are competitive, how do you manage that? So we're able to kind of show God's grace and love and how we handle winning the right way and also losing the right way. And then there are times when we're able to earn the right to share our lives with others who need help. And in that time, we can then share, again, our life experiences and can help them to hopefully, if they don't know the Lord, come to know the Lord. And also sometimes just stay in touch, because you may have people who want to be connected into the church in a way, but maybe have not made that commitment. And as you're just showing them God's love, then they will ask more questions, and then you're just planting that seed for hopefully in the future.
Athletics has long been a gateway ministry that introduces people to other people who love Jesus. So it's been awesome. We really appreciate the amount of time and energy you put into that. So that's on that side. Now Robin is here because she represents, we do an awful lot with partner organizations. And so these partner organizations are organizations that either share our facilities, that our people serve with, that are engaged with, that are kind of not necessarily what we do here on a regular basis, but happens out there. And there's lots. You can see the whole list. I mean, we're engaged. Lots of our people serve with Love Inc., with Young Life, with the Gideons. That's been over a year. The Crisis Pregnancy Center. I know I didn't get all of them. But a couple that you've been involved with, which is DAPI, which is connected to Young Life and Young Mothers, and the Her Care Clinic. And so I asked Robin the same thing. Can you share a story of why that matters, what God does in that?
Right. So I love the partnership that our church has with Young Life. Young Life is the big organization, the national organization, and then Young Lives is kind of underneath that, working specifically with teen moms. So that's what I do. I'm a volunteer coordinator for Young Lives, and that's why we go over to DAPI, which is a nonprofit high school for teen moms. A lot of people have questions about that, so I thought I'd clarify it. And what's beautiful is DAPI is just a nonprofit. It's not faith-based, but they have welcomed us in to do club, which is once a month, working with teen moms, sharing the gospel with them, offering mentorship opportunities. We offer childcare and then offer opportunities to go to camp. So it's kind of a unique situation that we can go over there and be with them and mentor them. And then, of course, also Her Care Clinic. I'm on the board for Her Care Clinic, and that just got up and running this past year. And I love the fact that there are 5 of us on the board from different churches. And so we get to learn about each other's body of Christ and different denominations, but we work together to serve the single moms and the babies and promoting life in the community. And so Young Life has been able to utilize this facility for their gala the last 2 years, and that brings people in as a fundraiser, so that's been really cool. And then the last 3 years, we've done the Young Lives Teen Moms Christmas Party. And they just love coming in and using our space because we have the space for it, and it's quite a few people that come in. And I know that there's people that haven't stepped into a church either ever or in a very long time who feel welcomed and loved. And we've created kind of like a team, like the food serving people, we've become this little team now. Each year we look forward to doing this and serving the moms and also the staff at DAPI. So those are a few things that I do, and it's been beautiful.
And you've seen some people's lives, some young ladies' lives changed
Yes.
by the gospel in that process. There are so many opportunities. Thank you for serving in that. If you have questions about any of these things, talk to these two. They will be able to answer your question or point you in whatever direction they need to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.